Hi, everybody. This is the moment where we're going to share stories about our dear friend Glenn. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that you're being recorded and that you know that this is going to be shared either online or possibly during his memorial service. If you're cool with that, please give us a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Okay. So if anybody I want this to be organic. So anybody would like to start, please feel free to do so. All right, go Mel.
Hi, so my name is Mel, and for those of you who do not know me, I am Pastor Mark's daughter from Chicago, and this is my husband, Marlon.
Hello. Hello, brother.
We're at like a family get together right now. I have known. Sorry, I'm gonna use my sister-in-law's office. I have known Glenn since we were teens, but we never really got close. Just like TJ, I've known him forever as well, and I'm sure all of you have as well. Our congregation back then was in Moreno Valley, and Arlene was one of our youth. It's only the last 10 years that I've gotten the chance to actually sit down with Glenn and have our one-on-one time together. And the sad part is that it was already when he's already experiencing his ailment. And the one thing that touched me about Glenn is that for so many years we didn't see each other, and just that first 5 minutes of meeting my daughter, who was then 2 years old, he was so generous and gave her money and a gift card for Build-A-Bear. And my daughter was so happy because Build-A-Bear it was a staple for all 2-year-olds or to 7-year-olds, and she grew up with that Build-A-Bear. And every time I would come visit my parents and we would visit Glenn, she would always bring Mr. Build-A-Bear with her. And it was just that short time that he showed how generous he was to my daughter. It was a very, to me, it was a huge gesture. And for him, it may have been just a habit, or may have been just one of those, you know what, it's a kid, I'm going to go ahead and give her something. But it was an impact, and Glenn had that. The last time I saw Glenn was September of last year. And he kept telling my husband and I, watch Shaq. I don't know if I think that's the title of the movie, but he kept telling us, you both have to watch it.
What's the title?
Shaq?
Shaq, like the basketball player?
The Shaq, like.
Oh, yeah, no, he's with. Okay, so, like, I mean, not to cut you off, but yeah, Glenn barely watches movies. So if he recommends something, that's a big deal for him, because he actually remembers the title in this one. So that was pretty good. So, I mean, that's Glenn, dude.
Yeah. So, he's very approachable and just somebody who's so kind and so genuine and very sensitive in life. That anything that deals with sentiment, feelings, emotions, I feel like he's so in tune with that. I mean, he's a ladies' man. Like, to me, that would be like a perfect gentleman. So And that's my story about Glenn. And for those impacted on his loss, I'm so sorry. We will miss him, and I'm sure his family will miss him, and we will be praying for him. Thank you.
No, Glenn, like as far as movies is concerned, there was this one time where it was like years after this movie came out, and he goes, "Hey, I want to see that one new movie." I'm like, "Which one?" I'm like, he goes, "Shakespeare in Love. I heard it's a new movie." I'm like, "Bro, that came out like years ago, man." And he's like, "Oh, but I mean, he's just so like, yeah, and I would recommend movies to him all the time, right? Because I'm a movie guy. I recommend movies to him all the time, and then he's like, "No, it's okay. Just tell me about it." I'm like, "It's not the same, bro. It's absolutely not the same. Like everybody dies. That's where that's what I tell him. Everybody dies in the movies." So, but thank you, Mel. Anybody else would like to share?
Since Mel talked about bears, maybe I can pick up from there. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And I appreciate the conversational style because I think as everyone talks, I think I'll remember more. I have a feeling that Glenn and I knew each other as little kids because we used to be at Rosewood, or my family was. So there's I'm sure many childhood memories there, but my soonest memories of our friendship were when we were youth and youth at Christmas Institute, and being able to share those many years, weeks over years at camp. But where I think we all really got to bond with so many of you also here on this call is during those design team years of camp. And I just remember him smiling a lot, or I just can see the glow in his face, right? And his laughter. Did we call him Tumba?
Yeah, he was called Pumbaa for a minute. Yeah.
Something like that. What was that, from Lion King or something?
Yeah, the warthog from Lion King. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, in a very endearing way, right? Because he just was.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah.
And Christian was Timon.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that kind of playful associations, I think, is a lot of what I think of with Glenn. But to just echo what Mel said about his seriousness and the way that he approached relationships, he was so serious and intense, and not in a bad way, just a very caring way. Everything was so authentic and deep for him, and he cared about people so deeply. And I just know that he would go over the moon to do anything for people. And when we had camp, he would drive out late at night to go get something that we needed and come right back. And just he would go those lengths and during that time, and I'm sure throughout the year with his youth. So I just know he was a devoted youth leader and just a great mentor to many people. The reason I thought of the bear connection is I think this is one of his. I think he gave this to me. Yeah. So did he have a collection of these guys?
No.
Yeah.
Why is
Something you didn't know about, T.
Okay, I hope I'm not making this up, but I'm pretty sure.
He did give you that.
Oh.
Yes, he was very sweet. This is a princess bear, right? I don't want to take it out of the case because it's like all fancy and special.
Yeah, it's gonna devalue it if you take
Is that the Princess Di?
I think. Well, shall I open? I did open it earlier. Let's see. But I think he had a collection though, right?
I don't know.
It says say princess. Diana. Oh yeah, Princess Di.
Wow.
Yeah.
Princess Diana, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So he was very sweet, and he gifted me this, and I know it came from a lot of affection, and I shared that affection in some ways too, and just really treasure that friendship that we had, and sad that time has just created distance, as it does, time and distance, us moving up here. But I always knew that, if whenever we reconnected, that, it would be like old times, because he was just like one of those people who, would just pick up where he left off, and the love and spirit that he embodies, that's so positive and authentic, that would just, we could pick that up right where we left off. But I can see his smiling eyes. I can see his smiling face and the glow that he carried around with him, and the great lengths that he would go to just get people what they needed and to take care of people. And so I'm so grateful to have known him, and I wish we had so many more years to, pick up our relationships again. But I'll be thinking about him and the whole family, and all of you who, really were his family at Rosewood during these times. So I'm sure
Yeah, I mean, so like a quick note about the whole Pumbaa thing. When I was working for this lighting company, I had my own office, and I had like some photos of, and Glenn was one of them, was in one of the photos. And one of the engineers for that lighting company saw the photo and he goes, Pumbaa? And I'm like, what? And him and Glenn actually went to school together. And so it's just, that's Glenn. I mean, like usually you have like a nickname for a set of friends and then another nickname for another set of friends, right? Glenn is so like practical. There's like, you know what, if you're gonna call me Pumbaa here, then everybody's gonna call me across the board as far as nickname is concerned, is gonna be across Pumbaa. So he did do that. So he's just that type of guy that, but I'm actually trying to find that former coworker slash friend of mine. Trying to find him. Of course, we've disconnected ever since I left the company, but yeah, so I'm hoping to be able to connect with him. Anybody else? Thanks, Rose. Anybody else would like to share? Oh, wait, Kui Joey's here. Here, 1 second before you start that. Hey, Kui Joey.
Hey.
Hey, I just need you to give me a thumbs up if you consent to being recorded and knowing that it's going to be shared later. Yes, I'm hoping that's your thumb. So
Yes.
okay. All right. So we're just sharing some stories about Glenn. We're gonna keep it organic. So if anybody else kind of picks up some of the stories and reminds you of something, feel free to elaborate or expound on it. So if anybody else would like to share. All right, Arlene, go ahead. Arlene, we can't hear you all of a sudden. You mute yourself.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with Kuya Glenn. I met him long time ago, just like I met everybody else at CI in '93. One memory though that does stick out was a trip to Vegas that we took more than 20 years ago. TJ was there.
I was there, yes.
Tina was there, Risa was there, Ate Sally, Rochelle, I think Kevin was there, Christian.
Ricardo, hold on 1 second. Ricardo's joining us. Okay, go ahead. Dion. Hey, there he is. Hey. So I just want to kind of get your consent that you're being recorded and is going to be distributed later. If you are okay with that, give me a thumbs up. All right, wonderful. All right, go ahead, Arlene, continue.
So I was just talking about a trip that we took to Vegas, like maybe 22, 23 years ago. We were young. TJ, help me out. How old was Kuya Glenn back then?
I think he's like 5 years. Yeah, he was 25 because I was like 20 years old.
Oh,
so,
okay. 25. So, I mean, I think Risa and Sally just turned 21. So we were still,
that was their 21st birthday.
We were still really young. This was like our first trip without parents in Vegas. And without saying too much about, anything, like we were having fun. We were having fun. And I just remember Kuya Glenn was like the parent that we didn't have there. Like, I don't remember like anything about that trip, to be honest. Like pictures, when I see pictures, some things will come back, but I don't really remember it much. But I do remember distinctly Kuya Glenn trying to offer us coffee, like just drink coffee. Do you remember that?
Actually, he was trying to get used to drink water because he would actually literally walk up to every one of the people who was sleeping and just his mom's gonna hear. Parents are gonna hear about this. So you know, if you guys are not scared, I'll say it. But whatever. So he would actually go up to each and every one of you guys that was sleeping it off with a glass of water and just say you're gonna regret, if you don't do this, you're gonna regret it in the morning. You know, fine, don't drink it. You're the one who's gonna be suffering. That's totally Glenn. Yeah. So he was totally being a parent. So.
Okay, so I did remember that, right?
You did. So, but it wasn't coffee. That's the only thing. It wasn't coffee. It was
Okay.
water. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's. Go ahead, Arlene. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I didn't get a chance to really get to know him that well, but from what I did know, I mean, was he an old soul? Like, he felt like just somebody that was always.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, old soul.
Absolutely.
Old soul. Oh my
Soul,
gosh,
right?
100%.
When he was
Like-
born, he was already 35.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, man. He was so like serious all the time, man.
Serious, but like always trying to take care of you, right? And that's what I got from him. That's what I remember.
Yeah, no, I mean, Glenn is just like when, you know, one of the things that Glenn, and this is not my official story sharing, but one of the things that Glenn really, really, really gets annoyed about, so hence I always reminded him about it because it annoys him. He doesn't like it. Like when we were young, when we wanted to go out, our parents will not let us out unless Glenn's with us, right? So if we want, I mean, June, right? Grace, it's like, you know, I'm like, hey mom, can we go hang out? Like, why? Where are you going? Huh? Where are you going? I'm like, mom, it's okay. Glenn's there. Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
You know,
usually if I said Glenn was with us.
yeah,
it's
all you
no
have to say is Glenn's with you, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
And so even throughout the years, Glenn would really get annoyed by that. He'd be like, why does everybody use me as an excuse? And I'm like, Glenn, you have to understand something. If our parents walked into a room and we're all like passed out with needles sticking out of our arms and there's white powder on the coffee table and like, what the hell's going on? Oh, Glenn's here. Oh, they're just playing. They're just pretending. They're just, no, those are toys. That's Paul Baron. That's not cocaine. That's Paul Baron. That's Marie's joining us. So Glenn just really gets annoyed by that. And he's like, why'd you guys encourage that? Because we wanted to go out. We want to leave. We want to go hang out. So, I mean, you're the sacrificial lamb, you know, kind of stuff. So, but that's Glenn. You're right. He had such an old soul, a reliable old soul that, you know, the people who grew up with him capitalized on it. But yeah, no, he was definitely a great guy. In that Vegas trip, I can share that he definitely was the designator. He was the person that was the parent, but he did abandon me when there was a fight that almost happened that I'm not going to really get into right now. And Arlene kind of knows what I'm talking about. Yes, no, there was a fight. I almost got beat up by two guys. And okay, bye,
I
Mel.
don't think you can get beat up, TJ.
Back then, I wasn't training as much yet. So, okay, Mel, unfortunately has to go. So say goodbye to Mel, everybody.
Bye, Mel.
Love you, Mel. We'll talk soon. All right, so
Bye.
bye. All right, so if anybody else would like to share anything else, any stories, please just kind of go ahead. Thanks, Arlene.
Me? Thank you.
Jen.
So, like, I haven't been, well, I know whoever doesn't know me, I'm Jennifer. Went to CI, was one of the youngest couple youngest ones, whatever. And what's that called? So, met Glenn at CI, or going to Rosewood for the. Sorry, I got distracted from TJ.
All right, bye. I'll stop.
So yeah, just quick Glenn at Rosewood, or like even at CI and stuff like that. But whenever I'm at CI, I used to be like really, really quiet, really, really shy. And TJ was one of them too. Glenn would always like come up just to stand with me, not even have a conversation, just stand. just to watch everybody do their thing during the Olympics or during whatever activity we had, even during lunchtime or something. I'll be the last ones eating, and then TJ and Coy Glenn and Ate Grace, sometimes Coy June is at the table. I'll just come and sit with the guys. And so from that, I thought that Coy Glenn was just, even though we didn't have a conversation, he just come up and, hey, what's going on? That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. No, we during Camp Olympics, we stood by you because we didn't want to be picked on. So we just like, hey, if we hide, I think that might be best. Yeah.
You know, Jennifer reminded me something really, I can say a lot about Glenn, but I'm going to focus on CI. So for those of you on design team and Marvin, Marie, one of the things that Jennifer, you reminded me was we spent a lot of time because Glenn wanted to know about every camper.
Yeah.
So especially if they were new, we would debrief on every camper, what their background was, what they needed. And that was Glenn's heart. And he always wanted to make sure we were paying attention to those that may have felt left out or those that are new. And so I felt like we were always up at night because we were debriefing on all the campers. And that was just Glenn's heart. So when I reflect back on it, very few people I know can do that, just have that kind of heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. I didn't know you guys did that.
Well, now you know. It's about you. Just kidding.
Now I get kind of creepy now.
I actually kind of discourage him from doing that. I'm like, oh, but they're gonna not have to remember names, you know. So it's kind of hard. No, Glenn he would always try to like make sure that everybody's included, even at the expense of him being included to the events. That's
it worked.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but that's who he's just he's that kind of guy that he's to sacrifice his him having fun just to make sure other people is having a great time. So we have Marvin and Marie that just joined us. Marvin, I just want to let you guys know that you guys are being recorded, and that if you guys give consent to being recorded, knowing that it's going to be shared later, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share the story about Glenn?
I'll share one. All
right, cool, Joey, go ahead.
No, as you know, Glenn. We know Glenn from Rosewood and also from CI. So definitely CI is the main thing. As one of the CI leaders, you know, I'd like to joke and be funny all the time, but I realized that with Glenn is that you better be careful what you say, because he takes a lot of it. He was really super serious about CI, and I learned that one of the things that I am as well, you know, serious about CI, but he was really he was really super concerned about the campers and about the programs and all, and just making sure everybody is having a wonderful experience. That it made me think about how I was approaching camp sometimes, because you know, you've been to 1, 3, 25 of these things, and you're just not, you're serious about it, but at the same time you're as you know, you kind of know what to expect. But in talking to him and working with him, he's really dedicated and serious about it. Like I had to watch out and say, well, you know, make sure don't kid about this stuff, or don't tell Glenn to do this, because he was really gonna do it, you know. And so yeah, so that's one of my memories about Glenn, is that he was really a serious guy, but he was also a lot of fun too. I remember we were messing. We were messing around with this expedition, because he had the newest car back then, the one cam.
Yeah,
and we got to use it for your video, Glenn. And he was willing, just going up and down that little hill with his car, trying to be, you know, like trying to do like an MTV entrance with all these stars back in the day. I don't know which guys, but anyway, so he was really just letting us use his car, and then having even having said, oh yeah, if you slow up coming through and all that stuff. So it was really nice, a fun guy to work with, and but you gotta understand that he will take a suggestion seriously, and you gotta make sure hey, you gotta let him. Hey, Glenn, I'm just kidding. It's okay. You don't have to do that.
No,
But
stop
yeah, he will.
blood, Glenn. Stop giving blood, Glenn. We were just kidding. We don't need your blood for Dinuguan. Okay, it's okay.
But yeah, but he really was a concerned guy, especially with all the with all the things about the camps and stuff. Was he at the camp where we had the wolves, or was he not there? That was that.
Which one is the one with the wolves?
What year was that, Kuya Joey?
One of the later ones.
Oh, that
Okay,
was,
that narrows it down.
I
So,
know.
who was the director? of
Sorry.
that? Do you remember? That would help me. narrow it down.
Is that in Palomar?
No, it was somewhere. Maybe he wasn't there then. Maybe he was already. He was.
I think the last director he was with was you guys. So you and I
Oh,
think
okay. So yeah, so he wasn't there. But if he would have been there, he would have been one of the guys making the
yeah.
plan for how to
exactly.
get
Making
the
wolves-
guys out. Make sure the campers were not eaten by the wolves,
Yeah, exactly. So
which is a story in and of itself.
wonderful. Thanks, Kuya Joey. Anybody
You're
else?
welcome.
Anybody else would like to share?
I'll go.
Okay, Rach.
So, hi everyone. For those of you, well, even for those of you who know me or don't know me, my name is Rach Navarro, originally from Seattle, Washington, and I built friendships with Kuya Glenn and many of you through church and CI. And I have similar reflections. A lot of people have been posting some memories on Facebook, and June and I have been talking. And I have similar reflections about how just very kind and loving and encouraging Kuya Glenn always was to everyone. And I was reminded by, I think someone posted a picture that Kuya Glenn was part of that CI SoCal group that came to Seattle years ago, back in 1999, to help us organize and mentor our first Christmas Institute planning team down there. Up here in the Pacific Northwest. And, that ministry, just involvement, of course, in the Christmas Institute ministry through the years in California, and then helping the Pacific Northwest planning team, the first one, get started. And our PNW CI has been going strong for 22 years and counting now. And it was always a joy to see Kuya Glenn when I was able to visit California and then live in California and see him at some of the gatherings. And I just remember that conversations were always easy and laid back with him. Aside from talking about faith and ministry, we would always find, something common to talk about. And oftentimes that would become something about sports, because we both had an interest in sports. And, Kuya Glenn, knowing that I was from Seattle, would always make a nice connection. And, he would say nice things about our Seattle Supersonics. And even when we lost our team, he would always say that he missed us having our NBA team in Seattle and hope we get a team back one day. I have a prop because we can't see it. Here we go.
Nice.
And and I would always, I wouldn't be surprised to get a text from him every now and then whenever our Seahawks were playing. Oh, props don't work in the background. It's okay, Seahawks. But yeah, Kuya Glenn's impact.
His endorsement or something?
I see there's like some LA team going in the other screen. But anyway, Kuya Glenn's impact and influence will always be remembered because, I'm sure a lot of people felt this, but it wasn't always about Kuya Glenn himself or him wanting to seek credit or recognition for the things that he did. These were all acts of love from God and just bringing glory and honor and praise to our Lord. And so that's what makes a lot of the time we spent with Kuya Glenn and just our memories of him really special and meaningful, as well as a lot of times I've spent with many of you. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rach. Anybody else would like to share a story?
You probably heard this one already, but there was one year, I can't remember what year it was. I was Glenn's Kris Kringle, and he kept every single one of the gifts that I made him. And I think one of them, and I can't even remember what type of fruit it was. I think it was an orange or an apple. Someone told me it looked like a potato because he put it in a Ziploc bag and kept it until it was like moldy. Did he even throw it out?
Probably not, knowing him.
Eventually he had to.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't even.
he probably grew a tree already or something. So, and he will probably kept it. So.
I don't even remember what type of fruit it was, but I carved this piece of fruit into like a little jack-o'-lantern. And I heard he kept it like months after CI had ended. But aside from that, one of my earliest memories of Glenn was, I remember we were at a Bible study, and I can't remember what year that was. I think I was either in 9th or 10th grade. And he was one of the first ones to come up to me and say, you know, I think you're going to be a good leader one day. And at the time that he'd said it, I've never envisioned myself as a leader. So that was kind of took me aback because, you know, I've never seen myself in a leadership position. So he was kind of the first one to point out my potential for being a leader. So that's what I remember of Glenn.
Thank you, Marie. Anybody else would like to share? And if you have a new story that came up, please, you can say it again. But Amy, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy. I think I only know Kuya June and of course Kuya TJ, but thanks for letting me in here. It's been a while since I saw or talked to Kuya Glenn, but I think I met him when I was 16. I'm gonna be 30 next month. So again, it's through church at Rosewood. I was a new member at Rosewood, and I was a teenager, and I remember Kuya Glenn, and even without his knowledge throughout the years after he had to stay home most of the time, he couldn't go to church, I'd always indirectly kind of check in on how he's doing, because I really had like a soft spot for Kuya Glenn. He always seemed to look out for me as a teenager, and really felt like he had my best interest as a youth at church. And so I know Kuya Christian, and me and Kuya Christian talk all the time, or more frequently. And every time we talk, I would say, hey Kuya, let me know when you're going to see Kuya Glenn so I can go with you, because I don't want to go by myself. I don't know where he lives, and so, and he's been sick, so I said I want to go visit him. And so I just feel bad because I never actually went since he had to stay home, but I've always had him in my thoughts, and I've always prayed that he would continue to have strength. So when I heard that he'd passed, I was just, for whatever reason, I felt so sad. And this is for a person I haven't seen and talked to directly in more than a decade, and that's how much of an impact he has on me. When I remember when I was younger at church, my family was very strict with me, and I couldn't really go out a lot, even if it was like church related stuff. But like what I heard from most of you, if Kuya Glenn was around, it would always be a different story. So I remember that I've always wanted to go to CI, and I think the third year that I asked, to the first 2 years I couldn't go because it's like a 5 overnight stay, and the third year I said I really want to go, and I think he heard that I really wanted to go, and I haven't been to one. And so whoever was coordinating that year at Rosewood, they're like, if it's just the cost you're thinking about, somebody just go ahead and sign up. Someone's already paid for you. And you know, I think a few years later, I found out it was him making ways to make sure the youth was able to go. And it's just that sort of stuff. So I remember that he would always make sure that I could go to youth Bible studies and all of those functions with Pastor Eric. So the youth pastor, and him and Pastor Eric were really close, and Pastor Eric would drive me around and pick me up and drop me off, but he was always there for me. And I always wondered, I said, why is this guy so nice? Like, this is not even, I said, he barely knows me, he just met me, and for whatever reason, he's always, and not, it wasn't just me, you could see he's like really involved. So I was, I'm a nurse right now, so when I heard what he was going through, he'd always be, you know, randomly, I would think about him, and I miss him. I miss him and his presence, and I wish I told him how much of an impact he made in my life, because one of the things I learned from him, from being around him when I was younger, was how to give back. And I remembered that he was just a very successful guy. I don't remember what he did, but when I was at church, I remember that I said, I want to, in the future, I want to be like him, where, you know, it doesn't phase him if he was doing well. It was very irrelevant. You could tell, even as a young person, I could tell it didn't phase him where he was at, you know, economically in his life. He was giving without letting people know he was giving, and you could feel that. And it was just so impactful to me as a young person, and throughout my life, I just never forgot him. And he leaves such a mark on you. You know, it's really rare that a person can do that. So I just thought it was great that Kuya TJ put this together. Thanks, Kuya, again. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, no, Glenn would do that. He would sponsor people for CI because he needs a tax break. No, I'm kidding. No, he's just genuinely a good guy. But you know, the tax break thing was just a bonus. But no, that was one of the things that I loved about Glenn. He never like measured like, you know, how good his life was based upon how good his money was. You know, it was just, you know, going to work and getting paid is just what you do as an adult. That's all he kind of, you know, worked about or revolved around that. But if you asked him before he got sick, of course, you know, hey, how you doing? Most of us, especially now when we, you know, as adults, we always say, oh, work is this or work is that. Glenn won't actually answer that way. Most of the time he'll just answer, oh, you know, just a little tired, you know, but I was doing this thing with my family or this thing. Like he would, like work is not the first thing that pops in his head when you ask him how he's doing. You know, so we worked, I used to work for a company that like the same lighting company was like 5 minutes away from his company, Arco BP. So we would actually have, many times we would have lunch together. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, that's just that Glenn is not a materialistic person. You know, he's not a materialistic person. He likes stuff, of course, who doesn't, but he doesn't, that's not how he measures his success. So, but thanks, Amy. Anybody else would like to share?
I'll share a couple things.
Sure, Jim.
When I found out what's been going on, I was browsing through old CI pictures / youth pictures. And so I'm up.
Are they digital?
No, I mean, this is like.
Mine are not digital, so.
They're not digitals, but basically I have it on. I'll show you guys. I mean, this is like, I think a Wilshire fellowship. And you see Kuya Glenn in the background.
Okay, yeah.
And you see Kuya Marvin cut off.
Those were different days.
Yeah. That's one event of him fellowshipping when Rosewood Youth was going on with other churches. And here's him speaking at CI.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but what I remember about Kuya Glenn from Rosewood days and growing up and CI and him being a mentorship to a lot of people, he always had a servant's heart. Um, my observation of him was basically he always went out of his way to help anyone, the elder, the youth. Um, he basically would ask how you're doing, how's your day, and he, like TJ was sharing, like and most of you know that if you ask anything about Q Glenn, he won't go into details. He'll basically kind of just shy the question away and ask how you're doing and whatnot, and to make sure your morale is good and you're doing well. But all these years knowing Kuya Glenn, he basically, like even at church, you would see him just helping someone, and if he was done helping someone, you never see him relax or sat down. He always made a good intention to have conversations with different people. I noticed this even at CI with the different leaderships and colleagues, even after the meetings, you would see him sometimes talk to my sister, Dr. Rosalind, even Priya Joy sometimes, or even TJ, or whoever was there, just to get feedback or even have like a deep conversation. And you're talking about conversations that won't stay 5 minutes. I'm talking about conversations that sometimes will go long and on and on, and that's one thing about Kuya Glenn that I remember. And and even, let's backtrack this to youth days, even when we had like CI fellowship with other churches, this guy would basically like drive from different cities to pick up person A and then person B. Whatever time of day it was, he was there willing to offer rides to and fro, and even though he was tired, he would push that aside and he would make sure that you made it to that fellowship with no worries. So Kuya Glenn always was there for a lot of people, and he basically, did things through his actions. And that's one thing I'm, appreciate about him and miss about him.
Yeah, Glenn is the only person in history that has a 10-seater Camry, because we packed everybody in there, because he was if he's the only one that would our parents would allow us to hang out with, then that means he was the bus driver for us, and that was like before I got my license or anything like that. So Glenn, I remember we actually fit like 5 people in the back seat and 3 people in the front, right? And you would think that's pretty intense, but remember, this is the same guy that put his girlfriend in the trunk of his car. So yeah, that's another story that I probably have not said that, but regardless,
Probably not. His mom's gonna see this one.
I think we need more information, Kuya.
I'll put up the recording and I'll be share it. But regardless,
I think we can pause this part and stop recording.
You know what?
Pause the recording and then.
All right, we're back to recording. So anybody else want to share a story about Glenn? Okay, go ahead, Dion or Ricardo.
Hi, everyone. My name's Dion, or many of you know me as Ricardo. But I was really
Pastor
sad.
Dion.
Oh, hi, everyone. Sarah's here, and Shalom, and they send their hellos and their regards and condolences, but we were really saddened to hear the news of Glenn's passing. But the quick story that I want to share in my memory of Glenn, and Rachel had mentioned it, the first time that I had met Glenn was at the Joint CI in I think it's 1996, when we had a crew of about 15 youth from Seattle come down to experience CI with you all. And that's where I had first met Glenn. And to be honest, like, I don't remember a lot of interactions with him, but that was kind of the seedings of friendships with a lot of you. And just over the years, there was a season of my life where it seemed like I was flying down to LA every summer for a stretch of 3, 4, 5 years. And when 1999 rolled around, Rach had mentioned it. A group of you leaders from Cali flew up to Seattle to show us PNW folks, to share your stories of how to lead, how to plan CI, and how to scale it out and all that.
We did
That's
that?
when I had really.
All I remember was going to eat all the time.
I think you just came
Yeah.
along for the trip, TJ.
I just
Yeah, I think it's just an excuse to just hang out, I think.
remember us teaching you guys except to go eat. So
But what I remember about that trip in '99, I remember I had graduated from the University of Washington in '98. And this is '99, like it was less than a year after graduating. And there's Glenn, Glenn in his way of being very, such a deep listener and in a very caring way. Guys like to joke around a lot. And, I try to joke around with Glenn and he wasn't having, he would just be like, But in a very caring and loving way, he was just kind of like, hey, Ricardo, how's your family? When I think back at it now, he was kind of like, hey, what are you up to? And not in a judgy way, but a very caring, like, what are your plans? What are you up to? Not as a kuya, but as a peer. He wasn't afraid to ask me like, okay, that's cool. You graduated. What are you doing now? And I just remember he had this fancy job. Like, I was just kind of like, whoa, that's amazing, Glenn. Like, I think something like a chemical engineer at BP or something like that. And not in a judgy way, but in a very caring way. He was just kind of like, hey, what are you up to? And what do you like? Or what are you interested in? And I thought it was very caring for him to approach me and to ask those very pastoral questions. So when I think of Glenn and how I imagine him, I think of him as a very thoughtful, caring, considerate, deep spiritual sense of caring for others. And that was his way of reaching out. And I really appreciated that because I think, I had, my parents were worried about me. They're like, oh, what's Ricardo? What's he doing with his life? And I would just say, hey, Mom, this is my friend Glenn. He has got an awesome job. No, but he was out of a spirit of caring and concern. He was just kind of like, hey, what are you up to? And I think at that time I was like volunteering at the church, and I think I honestly think I was making fish tanks or something at that time. But he was asking me questions about like, what am I interested in, and what are my plans? Kind of like, what is your trajectory? And I was like, whoa, where are these questions coming from? But I thought it was really out of a lot of care and love. So that's what I really appreciate about Glenn. And I mean, it's wonderful hearing all the stories that you've been sharing. Really sacred time of sharing what a gift he is to all of us. So that's it. Thanks, everyone.
He sounded like a job counselor, didn't he? He was like, so what is your trajectory?
Some ways, yeah.
I mean, but that's Glenn. I mean, but you're right. It wasn't from a judgy place. It's kind of his way of just, doing his part to help you. Like, if you, maybe like him being a sounding board in that situation where it's like, okay, well, what, I mean, let me, where do you think you want to go with this, kind of stuff. So, but yeah, no, he was the constant Kuya Glenn kind of stuff, right? There's not the Kuya Glenn mode is always on for him. So, anybody else? Myra just joined us in the group. Hi, Myra. Okay, so just so you know, since we're being recorded, and then this could be shared online or with his family, just give us a thumbs up if you consent to being recorded. Okay, wonderful. I feel like a lawyer every time I have to do that now. So just kind of disclaimer. So anybody else would like to share a story? Did everybody go? Okay, Marvin, go ahead, buddy. Okay, you actually have to talk.
Oh, sorry, technology's not my forte.
Oh man.
I had to have Marie.
All right, Marie's helping you with the technology. Holy Jesus! You might as well use smoke signals. Oh man.
Well, actually, there's a few things that's stood out. First, June, thanks for that whole thing that you put on Facebook. That was really beautiful.
That was great, man.
It really brought some emotions into my heart, and I was just like, damn, I can't believe it. But for those who don't know me, I'm Marvin. I guess you could say the first time I met Glenn, I was still at Wilshire. But one of the things that I really want to share about Glenn was one of our conversation was he came up to me and said, "You're with Marie Dacio?" He came up to me and he was just like, "I can't believe that we were together, like boyfriend, girlfriend." Now she's my wife, for those of you who don't know. And then I was just like, "Oh, okay, Glenn." Yeah, and he was just like, "I can't believe it." He said, "That's cool." And then he shared with me how long he knew Marie, and then he's still tripping out that we were together. And who knew 18 years later, we're still together. And I just remember—
18 years? Wow.
Yes, 18 years. And for those of you who don't know, we have a 17-year-old son who just graduated too.
Yay!
Oh no, I'm getting old.
So during that conversation, I remember Glenn was like, "Oh, I wish I could meet a person, you know, in the same faith and everything." And I was just telling him, "No, you will. Don't worry about it." And then after that, after like he would express himself, he would still end it with, "Wow, you're with Marie." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm with Marie." And then he's like, "Okay, I just never really thought in his Glenn way that you and Marie would be together." And I was like, "Okay." But that's one story I remember about Glenn. And another thing I remember about Glenn was we were, at the time I was really involved with the young adults, the youth, and everything in the ministry. And one of the conversation we had was pretty much we were just sharing some of the, you know, some of the issues, some of the things that we go through as servants of Christ, and some of the problems and some of the hurdles that we go through. And then during that conversation, I just remember, wow, I don't think I've ever met at that time another servant of Christ who's really dedicated, and it was real. It was genuine. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't like for praise or anything, or he was generally like really wanted to serve. And at that time, that's how I felt. And it was rare to meet men of Christ who were so devoted to the ministry in that way, and who was selfless and totally give up their energy and time. And for me to meet someone like that, and it was just a blessing, because there are moments where, you know, you're serving in the ministry and it could be draining, and to actually where God bless people to come into your life, and where like he knows when you're burdened. Glenn at that time was at that moment, at that time was, he came at a good time, because I was feeling burdened. And from there on, I just loved Glenn from there, because every time I saw him, every time I met him, his actions spoke louder. You know, you could see what he was doing, and it was just very inspiring. And I think, kind of like what Amy said earlier, I haven't really talked to him as much, especially when I've during dialysis and stuff, I kind of felt bad, you know, raising kids, family, being a husband to this one right here.
You should feel bad, but being a husband shouldn't grieve. But all right, hey, whatever.
So I think Amy brought it like you know, I wish I spent more time or just have our conversations with him. And when I found out, that was like the first thing that popped in my head. That oh man, you never really know when God's calling you. So before I end this, I just want to say I appreciate all of you guys. I love all you guys. You know, it's wonderful to how God has just brought us all together and brought friends together, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Marvin. I mean, you know, the one thing that I could say without a shadow of a doubt is that if you've just met Glenn, or you've known him for as long as me and Grace has, June, the impact is the same, right? The impact is like you can the genuineness, the altruism, everything about Glenn is just, he puts his heart on his sleeve. You know, there's and so I know that Glenn is actually really, you know, and the thing about it is, like, as much of an impact that he has made in each and every one of our lives, I will say this, that I know that we have made an impact on his, because we would talk about it a lot, and I will share more later. But I just want you to know that yeah, it does. I don't think that we should. I mean, if Glenn was here, he would tell you, don't feel bad that we've only known each other for X amount of time, or we haven't talked to each other for X amount of time. You all know that Glenn, if you haven't seen him for years and you see him the next, you know, in that moment, he would be the same heartful, genuine person that when you first met him. It would not be a different Glenn. So thanks, Marvin.
Marvin, Marvin made me think about something about Glenn. He really enjoyed seeing people come together at CI. We would spend a lot of time talking about who was dating whom, and not because it was gossip, but was really like, oh, I didn't expect that. Yes, Marie and Marvin, you were one of the, I wasn't expecting that. And then when Rachel and June got together, he actually called me and asked me what I thought. And I'm like, well, you know, like, I'll take your words, Glenn, as long as they're happy. Hey, that's great. I know, Rachel. And so he really saw that these relationships came together at CI, and we would have fun doing matchmaking, who would do this and that. And then Shalene and Irma got together. And so it was just a fun time. But even for the older crowd, that happened quite a bit. So he would always ask me if I would know anything. I said, you know, unfortunately, Glenn, I'm usually the last to know. Like, Marie and Marvin was different because I was with them a lot. So at Marie's house with her dad, and so that was predictable. But like Ricardo and Sarah, that was completely unexpected, right? So yeah, we were, you know, and so Glenn would always just love to talk about it because he enjoyed seeing all of us happy. And so I just, you know, so you guys are reminding me of all that wonderful relationships that occurred at CI. And so.
I think, go ahead, Marvin, go ahead.
Can I add something stupid?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I just remembered, Ricardo, the first time we met.
He just remembered who you were, buddy. He just remembered who you were.
Uh-oh.
Just remember the first time we met was we watched Titanic together at his place.
That's right, Leonardo. Leonardo.
That's movie, man. That's.
I had a bootleg copy of Titanic and we watched it.
Yeah. I think my mom walked in and said, "What are you guys watching?"
That's so romantic, guys.
I know. You know, it's like,
I said, Mom, this is my friend Marvin. Oh, okay. Watching Titanic.
I can just imagine your mom walking like, you know, I wasn't expecting to catch them watching that. You know, I was just, you know, that wasn't, no. We weren't expecting that one. So that's awesome, Titanic. Wonderful.
Good memories. Good memories.
Anybody else? I mean, I think everybody shared except for Myra. So, Myra, if you'd like to share.
Well, okay, I don't have a really good memory, but I just know that Glenn he's just that good-hearted person. You know, when, I don't know, the one thing that stuck out of my mind was, you know, like being at CI and not having anyone to hang out with. And sometimes I felt like that. And so, you know, Glenn was always that guy for me. You know, I'm like, okay, Glenn he's gonna be my partner. So, and when I came into the Zoom meeting, Ricardo was talking about that trip to Seattle. That was a fun trip. Oh my gosh, I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that trip. That was such a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad I was a part of it and that I was a part of it with you guys, and just being a part of like the design team and how Grace was, you know, Darth Vader and and it was just
Steve's still trying to understand that one.
Me too. But you know, it's those kinds of things that just stick. And I'm just so thankful for, you know, just all of your guys' friendship. And I'm glad that we could just come back on Zoom and, you know, pick up from where we left off.
I mean, Pastor Mark asked me to gather testimonies, and it was actually Grace's idea to do it Zoom and do it like this. So we decided, you know, it's just, you know, with social distancing and with the pandemic and everything, it's, you know, what the hell? There's a cat.
This is for you, TJ.
Come here.
So much story.
Sorry, it's being recorded. Sorry, I didn't know, Fred.
Do you remember the young adult CI that Nico planned?
I couldn't go to that one, so.
Oh, I think it was that camp, and I think what happened was they overbooked, right? They reserved for more campers than they actually registered, and then they were in a deficit, and Glenn asked, well, okay, how much is it? And I can't remember the exact figure. It was around maybe like 2,000, maybe 1 to 2,000. I don't remember the exact figure. And Glenn said, oh, okay, I'll take care of it. And do you remember that? And like he goes, oh, it was going to be like 10,000. But I think I just remember that because it's like, I don't know anyone who can just shell out $1,000, $2,000 to cover the cost of a camp, you know, at last minute.
I was there. I don't remember that. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He'd be the last person to advertise it.
That's true.
He'd be the last.
Excellent for you.
So, I mean, again, he did it because he needs the tax shelter. Okay, it was you know, a write-off, you know, a deduction. No, I mean, okay, so one of the best things one of the things that what the hell is that? Holy crap.
TJ doesn't like cats, for those of you that came in late.
I don't like cats. I hate cats. Let's get something clear. I think cats are the devil. So, because they're the most useless animal on the planet. You've never seen a seeing eye cat, a bomb sniffing cat, a drug sniffing cat. No, because they're
earmuffs on the kitty. Earmuffs.
No, they're
I know, poor Cece.
Yeah.
Cece, you gotta get down.
No, yeah. I don't care. So anyway, one of the things that Rosewood, it was during that time where Kevin and Glenn and myself, we were making some money, and then we would actually, you know, our tithe, we would 100% direct it to, or Kevin and I would direct our tithe directly to the youth group, right? Because we wanted to make sure that the money goes into a ministry that we actually believed in, right? Glenn would actually, and Glenn was also a part of that as well. So you know, and so it got to that point where if anybody wanted to go to CI from Rosewood, yeah, you're going for free, even if you could afford it, you know, because it's kind of like we had to spend the money. You know, if you guys know anything about, you know, budgets and everything, we had to spend the money, right? And then, whatchamacallit, like, we would go to Big Bear for the weekend, you know, and then again, the youth fund would cover 100% of it. It just got to that point where, you know, we believed in the youth ministry so much that the rest of the church was jealous of the youth group, because they were like, hey, can you guys donate? I'm like, no, because the money, it's not up for us to say. The youth group has to give us the authorization to pass that money out. So it's nothing we can do about it, right? But yeah, but that's Glenn's generosity, and he would be the last person to advertise about it. He'd be the last person to talk about it, kind of stuff. He wants to distance himself from whatever he just did financially as quickly as possible, because he just, you know, it's just not, again, he doesn't measure his success on that. So, but that's quintessential Glenn for y'all. Okay, so I guess it's Grace. You want to share first, or should I?
Okay, so there's a lot I could say about Glenn. So I love Glenn. Glenn is, I consider, one of my best friends ever. The core of us at Rosewood, meaning core, we grew up together, and there's so many things I could say about Glenn. And I think TJ, you've said this, you and I've talked about this. We knew all sides of Glenn. But one thing that I realized about Glenn when he passed away, I was like, wow, it's here. He's gone. I can't believe it. I was just really, really upset. And I thought I had just seen him at Kevin's dad's funeral. So Uncle Ding had passed away a day before my mother's funeral. So it was a hard time for us. And Glenn was just there. And when I think about CI, he cared about everybody. And I think on a personal level, when I took on the role of leadership at CI, he knew I was having some challenges about, you know, long-term, where am I going to worship? Where am I going to feel closest to God? And he knew that CI was going to be my last marker with the Methodist Church, and that eventually I was going to move on. And it was a process for him too. But he, of all people, stood by me and supported me in that effort. And what I felt like at CI, kind of selfishly, because there were times, you know, Rosalind and I would go together, and I would caravan with Rosalind in her van, because it would be me and her, and then all the stuff in the van, because Rosalind had a van, right? So
Rosalind is the only person I know that has a 2-seater for a minivan.
Yeah, and I think Clyde was in there a couple of times, and
There's about 3 vans.
yeah, and then Joey knows, right? And there were a couple of times when I think, Rosalind, you had car problems, right? And then Glenn would hear about it, and so but Glenn was always thinking about our welfare. And I knew that at CI it was really challenging, even though we were playing leadership roles. I think I got the Darth Vader nickname because I had to make some really tough decisions about who should counsel, and uphold a standard. Marie knows about this. And and we talked about this, and Glenn just found his way to support me in whatever way he could. And even in the quiet moments when we were tired, or he says, are you okay? And he would even, June and Irmo don't know this, but we spent a lot of time talking about June and Irmo. So in many respects, as they were growing up in CI, even though we're going to Rosewood together, he would always look out for me and my family.
Say hi.
And
people from CI were talking about Cleo Glenn.
And so the last time I saw him, I believe Uncle Ding's funeral was like in January. And was it January, TJ?
Yeah, no, because I was scared that I wasn't going to make it. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey.
You say, yeah, I was scared I wasn't going to make it, so I was coming back from Chicago. But yeah, it was January.
So he was just talking about how he was just happy to see everybody grown up, and just how well everybody's doing. And he just was so happy, and he found joy in other people's happiness. And even though he often put others before himself, to the point, even if he liked somebody, now I'm not going to talk about who he liked. That's just between Glenn and us who do know. He wanted to make sure they were happy first. So if they ended up dating somebody else or married somebody else, he was truthfully happy for them. But yeah, so Glenn is just, it's a hard time for a lot of us, just who grew up with him. But I do, remember and share in those funny stories at CI. And there were times when I'd be with Rosalind and you'd ask, is Rosalind okay? Is her car okay? And so, because Rosalind always had some type of car issue, or right?
He cared about the car. He cared about the car.
Yeah, and so he cared about the car. But
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did. And there was one time, I think we were trying to figure out how we were all going to make it up to CI from Rosewood. And he's like, well, do you think I should rent a car? And I'm like, well, okay, well, I don't have any money, Glenn. He's, no, I know, because I really didn't have any money at the time. And he would just be willing to shell out what he could so that people could go. But I just want to thank all of you for coming online. I think it means a lot to Glenn.
Yeah.
If I didn't share this, when I spoke to his mother yesterday, she said, of course, she, they're grieving, but she was very thankful that, and encouraged by all the Facebook messages. She's reading them. And in fact, TJ, the chit, is on Facebook, and not Glenn never was. So that's a whole nother conversation. But it really, I don't represent the family, but it really has encouraged her. And she goes, I didn't realize that she didn't realize, she saw the impact that Glenn made on everybody. And it just made her feel good. And I said, well, Glenn was amazing. And I know he's in heaven resting, but it's very hard.
So when I first found out about how sick Glenn was, I called him. I lived in Riverside County already, and he was still in Cerritos, and I just moved back from the Philippines, so when I left for the Philippines, I sold everything I owned. I sold my cars. I didn't have any money, and I came back without a job, kind of stuff. But when I found out about it, I wanted to go see him, but of course I couldn't. So I called him, and that was like, out of the entire relationship that he and I had, that was the first time I've ever heard him really depressed. And I was scared for my friend, and then so as soon as I got off the phone with him, I called our other friend. I called Kevin. Y'all know Kevin. I called Kev, and I said, Kev, I don't know, man. So Kevin and I decided that we're gonna take it upon ourselves. We're not gonna, we're gonna take it upon ourselves to call him and visit him as often as we can. So Kevin would be the one visiting him like every other, like at least once a month from what I recall, and then I would call him at least once a week. And our job was to make sure that he was okay. And then it quickly became that the best way to make sure that Glenn was okay was for him to make sure that we were okay. That he needed to know that we were gonna be okay. So it came to that point where now it's like it's not like I didn't do this before, but I would just call him because of all the things that's happening. And for those of you who've been following me these past couple years has been really hard for me and my family. Thankfully, my mom's still here and she's getting much better, but it's been hard. It's been very, very hard. And Glenn would always call me just to make sure I was okay. He would call me like after dialysis. You know, he's there for like several hours, and he would call me after dialysis. I know how tired he is, but he would call me to make sure I was okay. And I guess the hardest part about this whole thing is that, like I said, this past several years has been so like emotionally draining for me that I would call him. You know, he'd be the first person I'd call. So when I'm in this deep level of despair, he would be the first person I would call. And now I'm in this despair, and then for like a split second, I pick up my phone, and I'm about to dial Glenn's number. I know that he's in a better place. I know he's no longer suffering, because he was for the longest time. And I know he's in a better place, and he's still watching out for us. But I miss him. I miss my friend. And I shared the story about, like, my favorite thing about Glenn was when we played Mafia, and how we would purposely irritate him and kill him just because we wanted to, just to see his reaction. You realize that we'll never be able to play Mafia with him ever again. And I'm saying this because I know that we're all going to see each other in heaven one day. That we still can't play Mafia because we can't lie to each other. I'm assuming that lying is no longer going to be allowed in heaven. So we'll never be able to play Mafia with him ever again. But Glenn wasn't just one of my best friends. He was my brother. And you know, I called him last week. Because he wanted to get updates on my mom and how well she's doing. So I called him last week. I was actually in Cerritos a couple times last week, and he didn't return my calls. And normally he would return my calls within a day or two, right? But he didn't return my calls, so I kind of knew something was off. And then I saw Lawrence's post, and my heart just sank. Immediately I talked to Grace about this. I immediately went into like helping mode. So I called Kev, I called Lisa, I told my mother, I reached out to Christian, and then that's all the energy that I had left. I just felt like the wind has been taken out of my sail, and I just retreated. I canceled all my appointments. I had a lot of business stuff that I had to do that day, and I canceled all of them. And then people started reaching out to me, and I couldn't reach back out. So Glenn, you know, when Grace and June and I, when we were in our early 20s, we would actually have Bible study every week. And this when I lived in Orange County, and because of that, most of the time I rode with Glenn. So we would see each other once a week, go to the Bible studies, spend several hours talking about a chapter of a book, of a Bible in the book, and then drive home, and we'd still have the same conversations. And Glenn and I don't actually see a lot of things eye to eye as far as points of views is concerned. So we would continue to debate on the way home. But you never felt for a single moment that he thought anything less of you. You know, you never for a single moment that he thought he elevated himself higher because he had a different point of view. He always was the one that would listen and make sure that you felt equal, and you felt wanted, and you felt loved. And I'm just gonna miss my friend so much. And Lawrence sent us a message saying that thank you for being friends with my kuya. And I said, Lawrence, we're the one that's grateful that he was in our lives. We're the blessed one because he was the one that was in our lives. So
TJ, you reminded me, one of the things I did want to share was hard being his friend was the last couple of years, he would make every effort because he was on dialysis already. And then they had increased, I think he went to 3 times a week, or maybe he might have been going more towards the end.
Every other day.
He showed up at every event that he could. And it just broke my heart because I knew he was weak. I knew he was tired. And if he showed up for half an hour, he was determined, but he suffered quite a bit. But he wanted to be there for other people, whether it was a funeral, people's weddings. And it took its toll, because you know how it is like with Uncle Lori. I think about his dialysis experience where, you feel really good for a day and then you leave. And then for those of you in the medical field know that then you're down again and you have moments where you feel okay. Glenn really fought hard to be at those places and there's not much I could do for him except just reach out. And one of the conversations I had with him was maybe a year ago. I told him all the things I went through the past couple of years. My mother-in-law passed. I know there was a lot that happened, and he felt he missed out. Like, you didn't tell me about this. I'm like, Glenn, I'm okay. Don't worry about me. The fact that he felt he wasn't there for me when he was the one on dialysis, it made me really think about how I was as a friend to him. And even when my mom was, sick and in the hospital, and he would reach out to me, are you okay? Do you need anything? How's your mom? And do you need us to visit? Whatever it was just Glenn was that just kind of friend.
I remember for your mom's funeral and for Kevin's dad's funeral, he had to move his dialysis around. And he was telling me that he was having a hard time with his insurance company to make that happen. And then, but that's Glenn. He would be like, no, I need this to be moved for this day. But in order for that to happen, because he got to the point where he needed dialysis every other day, in order for that to happen, that means one of 2 things. He either has to go to dialysis two days in a row, but the insurance was not going to allow that to happen, or he's going to have to skip one. He has to go an extra day without dialysis to go back to his normal schedule. And he didn't hesitate. And I remember telling him, I'm like, look, Glenn, I know Grace, I know Kevin. They're not gonna think twice if you couldn't go because you had to go to dialysis. And then he goes, but I can't live with myself if I don't go. That's Glenn. That's the quintessential Glenn. That he didn't like to see us suffering. I'm gonna pause this for a second, the recording. So yeah, I mean, Glenn would always make sure that he would put everybody else first, into a fault where I would always like, Glenn, come on, man, it's your turn. Let's do things for you, man. And so it was. I think that if I spend another 100 years in this world, I'm never gonna find another Glenn. I mean, I know I'm gonna find good people, people with good hearts, but it's, Glenn's it's a whole new level, different level, and I'll never. And the last thing I'm gonna say about this is that even though the level of grief that I have right now because of him being gone, it is congruent to the fact that he's made that big of an impact, and the hole that's in my heart is because that's how much space that he occupied in my heart. And Glenn, I know you can I know you can see us and look down upon us, and even then that makes you feel bad for looking down upon us. That, you know, we love you, brother, and I will forever miss you. Anybody else would like to say anything else? Hi, Gracie.
Hi, Gracie.
She can totally tell she just woke up. So
yeah.
Say hi. Say hi.
Okay, so
Anybody want to say a
anybody
prayer
wanna
for
share?
us? Or
Let me go ahead and end the recording first, and then we could definitely do that. But maybe just one last thing to say about to Glenn's family. Kind of like an outro kind of thing. I guess I'll start. You know, Uncle Fred, Auntie Chit, Lawrence, and Marianne. Thank you for sharing Glenn with us. I know there was many times where, you know, he was supposed to be with you guys, but then, you know, he was with us. And as much as I am sorry that we took him away from you, and all those times where I'm not, because I'm so grateful to have had that time with him. And just so you know that we share the impact of loss that you might be feeling. Maybe not, definitely not as big as you guys are, but I just want you to know that that he has impacted so many people in so many different ways, in so many different places, that, you know, that we will feel the lack of his presence, that there's something missing. And but we're grateful that he was actually in our lives. So my deepest condolences on behalf of my family, my deepest condolences to all of you. We love you guys, and if there's anything we can do, please just let me know. Okay, I'm gonna end the recording.